Hey there, friends of Powder Keg. Matt Hunkler here, your host for this awesome session. I just got done recording. It is a recorded session, but there is so much in it. I'm talking with none other than Justin Welsh, who's based out of Nashville, Tennessee, moved there recently from the West Coast. Tons of SaaS experience. He's actually a revenue operator, an executive mentor, and an SMB SaaS advisor with more than 10 years of sales leadership experience. And he helps founders and sales leaders drive scalable growth. But he's also the author of the LinkedIn Playbook. This is actually how I first heard about Justin, just because I saw him blowing up online, doing a great job of building his network, building a personal brand, and he breaks it all down in this session. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you join us in the comments because I think he's going to be joining us live. We actually recorded this so that you could ask your questions live with Justin, get them answered. I'll be watching as well. So let's get the comments going. Go ahead and introduce yourself, drop your LinkedIn URL so we can all get connected. And we're going to dive right into this session with Justin Welsh. Hey, Justin, thanks so much for being here today for a very special Unvalley event. Obviously, hundreds of people here today, very interested in what you have to talk about, your experience scaling tech companies, but in particular, how you've helped so many people scale their personal brands. But first off, I just want to say thank you for being here. And where are you turning in from today?
It's great to be here. So thanks so much for having me. And my wife and I recently moved from Los Angeles to Nashville, Tennessee, about a little over 5 months ago. So coming to you from a kind of new empty house that we're furnishing in Nashville.
Congrats on making the move. And I'm glad to hear everything's furnished and you're feeling moved in.
Yeah, we're loving it. Thanks for asking.
What prompted the move?
It's interesting. So my wife and I both work for ourselves, and we loved LA. We really enjoyed it. We had a home there that we really loved. And when COVID hit, we kind of just looked around and said, this is expensive, right? Like working for yourselves hard, and it's expensive, and the tax consequences are pretty brutal. And with everything kind of going into lockdown, we just made this decision that we were going to start looking at different cities based on taxes, based on cost of living, technology. And we kind of narrowed it down to a few. Austin, which is a popular one, obviously, for a lot of folks moving there. Miami, which a lot of people are moving to. And I don't know, I just wanted to be different, I guess. I didn't want to go to Austin or Miami, and there's nothing wrong with that, but going to those two places. So we just chose Nashville, and we flew in here maybe 6-7 months ago. We saw one house, we bought it, and that was it.
Here we are. I'm so happy to hear that. And obviously, so many people making that move from the coast into some of these really fast-growing tech communities. You mentioned a few of them yourself. Nashville, certainly one of the hottest ones. We have hundreds of people from Nashville as part of the event here today. So obviously, lots of people right now considering the move to the middle of the country. Very robust tech ecosystems in all of these sort of second and third tier tech ecosystems. And one of the things that I think is so important for people to understand, regardless of whether they're an investor or an entrepreneur or someone breaking into sales or data science, is just their personal brand. And you're one of those people I look to just for my own education and learning to continue to build my own personal brand. I wanted to get kind of your own take on why this is something you've found yourself developing expertise in. You've helped hundreds, if not thousands, of tech professionals really grow their personal brands, regardless of where they live, and really kind of reach their full potential in whatever industry that they're in. I'm curious how you found yourself in that particular area of expertise.
Yeah, kind of by accident, to be honest. In 2018, I was working as an executive at a company in LA called Patient Pop, and I helped build that business over the course of many years. And I was starting to burn out in 2018. And I saw the future in terms of my life being working for myself. And I thought that in order to really take control of my life and to live a bit more intentionally, that self-employment, solopreneurship was going to be a part of that. And I had a hypothesis that in order to do that effectively, I'd need some attention somewhere online. And so I started experimenting. And that was the whole, driver behind what is now, something that I do pretty regularly. And I just chose a platform. I chose LinkedIn because that was just what I chose. I could have chosen Twitter or YouTube or something else, but that's just what I chose because I saw a few of my buddies doing it. And, I started to create content that I thought would be useful, helpful, entertaining, informative. And what was really evident right away was how many doors you open through just content creation, regardless of what platform you're creating it on. I met interesting people. I got interesting opportunities presented my way, job offers, new networks, so many different things opened up with just creation. And so when I saw that, I started to recognize that the more opportunities I got, the more I could build products to solve people's problems. I could, run a service business to help them work through a challenge. I could be a connector, introduce people. I got introduced to investing opportunities. There were all these different opportunities came my way. And so I think where it comes to shifting it to other folks and helping them build their own, we call it personal brand. I don't really know what to call it other than it's an online extension of how I behave and what I do offline. And so the reason that I teach people how to do that is because I believe it opens unique opportunities for them. And I think that given, where we're all at sitting at home today in the midst of a pandemic and with the reach of the internet, interesting people can find interesting people. And when you do those things, you unlock these really cool opportunities. And so that's one sort of reason that I advocate for that. But even if you don't want to find unique new opportunities, or you don't want to invest or build a company or build a network, it's just great for your career. Right. I mean, if I look at two salespeople and I'm going to hire them and one is, unknown online and one has a robust portfolio of things they believe in, their thoughts on sales, all the things they've accomplished, they stand out. And today it's about standing out with so many people unemployed. It's just another great benefit of building online.
Well, I definitely want to dive into just the blocking and tackling of standing out online. But one of the things that you mentioned really sparked my curiosity, and it's burnout. You mentioned burnout back in 2018. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you've really been able to shift directions in your career. Do you feel like you've been able to find that balance by investing in your personal brand? And if so, what are some of the things that help you just sort of day to day keep that balance when in reality, you could probably work whenever you want. And I'm sure you have an ongoing to-do list that could be infinite.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. I don't think I can paint a rosy picture of like somebody who does very little work. My natural inclination as a person is to work a lot. I'm a, self-proclaimed workaholic. I'm very much control freak. I obsess over a lot of different things. And so it's hard for me to relax. Like I'm definitely not the picture of relaxation, but I think what building a brand online does is it allows me to be fluid in how I'm feeling. And so, for example, I might have a burst of creativity on a Tuesday, and because I work for myself and because I don't have any commitments to other folks, I have some clients and things like that I'm obviously committed to, but I can go through a burst of creative writing or creative, audio recording or video recording. I can do that until I'm done. And other days I may not feel as creative. And so I might not create anything that day. I might spend my time reading or ingesting some other people's content and creations that I think are really interesting. But I think part of the way it's really helped me is it's given me back some things that I was struggling to have when I was burning out. Namely, I worked from 5:30 in the morning until like 8 o'clock at night when I was burning out. I wasn't exercising a lot. And now like my wife and I start each morning with a 6-mile walk in the park here in Nashville. And I do that from like 8:30 to 10. And I never had that flexibility or freedom before I was working for myself. And working for myself is a direct result of getting some attention online. And so those things to me are all sort of tied together. And so it's been a huge benefit in terms of my physical fitness, my mental fitness, my relationship fitness. These have all benefited from, having a bunch of unique opportunities based on what I've built over the last 24 months.
So talk to me a little bit about this concept of getting attention online, building a personal brand. I know I just hear you talk about kind of having space to really be your authentic self. Obviously in tech and in high growth startups, there's a lot of space to bump up against burnout and lose yourself a little bit in the work with these high growth technology companies. Do you have any strategies for sort of where to start? Let's say I've got a LinkedIn profile, but it's basically an online resume. I might have a Twitter account, but I'm just following some news sources, a couple of people that I know, maybe a couple celebrities. Where do I start? Do I just start randomly sharing things? Do I just start by creating a more impressive bio? Where did you start?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to start is to just share with people what you're doing, right? I think that the thing that keeps people from starting often is that they don't know what to say, or they feel concerned or scared or nervous. And those are all really viable things to feel, right? It's hard to put yourself out there. But and they also, a big assumption I hear from a lot of folks is I don't have anything interesting to say or knowledge to share that I think will be beneficial, which is foolish. Everyone has interesting things to say and great knowledge to share. So what I recommend is sharing to the world what you're working on, what's going well, what's going poorly, what failed, what succeeded, what was a lesson that you learned at work recently. If anything, if you create helpful content, you take all the people who are 2 or 3 or 4 steps behind you in their careers, and you give them someone to follow, to look up to learn from. And that naturally creates people who are interested in what you're doing. And if you continue to do that over the course of time, one very specific thing happened for me, which is I shared and I shared and I shared. And before I knew it, when I looked back 18 months ago, I looked back into the past after 18 months, I was like, wow, I actually wasn't a very good writer when I started. And I didn't mean to always be writing. I thought maybe I'd do audio and video, but really I just write each morning. And so not only did I grow a follower list of folks who are interested in what I'm doing, not only am I uncovering unique and interesting opportunities, but a side sort of outcome was becoming a better writer, which is cool. I think writing has its application in life and is a very valuable skill to have. So, that to me was just an interesting learning. And so for me, it's just choose a medium you enjoy. You are more likely to commit to it. So if you like video or audio or writing, put pen to paper, get on video, say something into a microphone, and just do it each day and tell people about what you're learning. That is the easiest way to get started. I think the last thing is who are you? What do you want people to know about you when they come and they do some research and diligence on you? And that, to me, that's just a simple, clean, descriptive, bio or homepage where they come to your profile and they can learn who you are and what you stand for. And so those are sort of my tips for getting started. I think, after you grow a little bit and you learn, I think the next thing is just have interesting things to say, right? Vanilla things don't really get a lot of pub on the internet, right? You have to have unique and strong opinions, and they're not made up. They're not things that you do to be divisive or polarizing. It's just everyone has unique and strong opinions, so share them. And so that's sort of what I recommend.
You mentioned writing, and whether it's writing or it's audio or it's video, what are some of the benefits of becoming a better communicator?
That's a great question. So I'll kind of describe where I can see some benefits in my life so far, which is because I'm self-employed. I build my own website, I write my own landing pages. I create my own material. I'm a one-man show, and so having written every day and communicated back and forth with thousands of people. I use those skills that I've acquired slowly but surely. And I'm certainly not a master writer. I'm not the world's greatest communicator. I'm just better than I used to be. And so I use that every day in my business. I use that when I write a landing page. I use that when I negotiate with clients. I use that when I'm being interviewed. And so I find application of those skills to be useful all around, holistically in my life.
When you think about answering the question, who are you? What are some of the things you encourage people to do when they start putting out sort of their representation of who they are online?
Yeah. I like to think about combining skills and interests. That's how I think about who you are. We all have skills. So I'll take, for instance, writing. I like to write. And I have a small skill in it. Again, I wouldn't consider myself to be a tremendous writer. I'd say I'm above average. And my interests are like self-employment, solopreneurship, building products, selling online. I like all that stuff. So I combine those two things. I write about that stuff. And so that's who I am online. And you see other folks, I was just doing this exercise as I was looking at some other people. There are other people who are designers. right? There's a guy I follow on Twitter named Jack Butcher. He is a designer and he likes complex ideas. So he designs to break down complex ideas into more simplified designs. And so he combines his skills and his interests to create something unique. And that's who he is now, at least online, right? Maybe not as a person in his normal routine, but that's what I encourage folks to do is think about their skills, combine them with their interests, and create something unique in the world. And that becomes who you are.
What would you say to someone who's looking to share content, but they're kind of constantly chasing whatever the trend is or whatever seems to be hot on social media that day or that week or that month, and maybe is struggling to find their own unique voice or their own unique sort of angle of the internet that they're interested in?
Yeah, keep going. Like I'll give you again in the context of my life. If I look back and when I started by creating these really strange quote bubble graphics on LinkedIn like 2 years ago, where I would like quote my own blog post with like this funny logo that I made up. And then I shifted into recording videos where I was breaking down sales things on a whiteboard. And that lasted a little bit. And I was like, I don't really like this. And then I started writing and I was like, oh, I like this. I actually enjoy this. This is something I can see myself committing to. And so it took me 3-4 different sort of, I guess, styles, topics to land on something that I truly enjoyed. And I know there's a lot of talk out there about like plow through, you gotta grind it through until you produce the stuff. I don't know. That's not how I live my life. Like if I don't like doing something, I'm not going to grind doing it every single day just to produce something, when the opportunities to do something that I truly enjoy and have similar outcomes to me is a much cleaner path. So my suggestion to them would be continue to create on a regular basis, continue to try and experiment. And when you find something that works well for you, then push further, continue. And so it's as simple as that. There's no trick.
I love that. I mean, it may not seem like a trick to you, but experimentation does seem like it's a superpower, and certainly is a common theme in startups, but maybe not a lot of people apply that to their own career or building a personal brand online. What are some of the other benefits that you've seen from experimentation in your own career?
Yeah. The biggest one is network. So it's interesting because I write each morning, and that's what I do now. I don't do any other really medium. This is the only other sort of medium that I do. But when I go out and I try something new, it's always interesting how that new thing, maybe it doesn't resonate the way that my writing does each morning, but it resonates really strongly with like 3 people that my writing doesn't resonate with. And so it's interesting whenever I experiment or try something new, I always meet new people. I always get introduced to interesting, founders, thinkers, creators. And to me, that is the biggest benefit, because I am a huge believer in the fact that your net worth is your network. I think that being connected is so extraordinarily valuable and undervalued. And so for me, the biggest takeaway and the biggest benefit has been this incredible network that I've fostered through content creation.
Is there someone or a couple of someones that you've met along the way who's helped you see the power of network, or has helped you even discover the power of your own network?
Yeah, definitely. I think the guy that stands out in my mind is a guy like Max Altshuler over at Outreach, and the creator of Sales Hacker. He's a connector by nature. His network is so deep, so valuable. Watching him operate and the folks that he's been able to surround himself with and get access to, I think is incredibly impressive. I mean that in the most complimentary way. I think, he's really impressive. I think another guy that's impressive is folks like Kyle Lacey over at Lessonly. I think he's the chief marketing officer over there. Kyle does these really personal, in-depth interviews, of which I was fortunate enough to take part in. And I've never met him. I've never met Scott Leese, another guy who's built a really great network on LinkedIn. Most of the people that I talk with all the time through my connections, I've actually never met in person. I've been fortunate enough to meet Max in person a few times, but those are some people that I think do a really, really great job at building their network.
What are some of the ways you take social media engagement and then turn it into a real long-term relationship. How does that work for you when you're, say, moving to a Zoom conversation?
Yeah.
Certainly, we've all experienced lots of those this year, but how do you kind of continue to evolve that relationship and go deeper over time?
Find mutual interests, right? I'll give you like an example. This is an example from today where I was creating content on LinkedIn, and there was a guy named Eddie Schlainer who used to work at G2 Crowd, who was interacting with some of my content. And, I've just seen him in passing online, right? And then he was creating some things on Twitter, and I commented on it. And then we connected, and I think I said like, hey, I think Very Good Copy is a really cool website. I love your website. It's one of my favorite resources for creating great copy. And he's like, oh, thanks so much. I like your stuff on LinkedIn. Oh, great. Awesome. So now we're connected. We know each other, a couple, courtesy exchanges online. And then I'm working on a new project at the moment, and creating a website for this particular project and getting the copyright has been really frustrating for me. And I was like, oh, Eddie Schlainer, Very Good Copy. Perfect. Reached out to him yesterday. I was like, hey, how do I work with you to like have you build my website and copy? He's like, oh, this would be awesome. And this could be a great relationship. And we scheduled a call for tomorrow. So for me, it's just about connecting. I love to compliment people on their creation. Like, I don't know, it's not a zero sum game. Like let's all support and compliment one another. He compliments me. We're like, hey, I'm a big fan. Awesome. Great. And then when I think copy, now Eddie's top of mind for me. And that's how we will maybe turn this into a much longer term relationship. It's the same with so many people that I run into online. We start as interactors, and then we become partners, affiliates, referral partners for our businesses. There's so many things to build with a strong network. I love it.
I love that example of Eddie because you thought of him. It's exactly on topic of what we're talking about in terms of personal brand. Mm-hmm. How do you figure out what that thing is that you want to be known for? Or once you've figured it out, I guess, how do you go kind of all in on one thing versus spreading yourself thin?
Well, you don't have to figure it out. That's the whole purpose. Like it's really interesting. Just create, put things out there, and your goal is to find something that you can commit to, a format, a topic. Don't worry about whether or not 1 million people find it interesting when you first get started. First of all, it's just hard to get started on any kind of social platform, right? But there's always a group of people that find something interesting, right? I don't care what your topic is. So like create things that you enjoy, be consistent, be patient, and wait for folks who are interested in that particular topic and style and skill set to start congregating, right, around your content online. And at that point in time, this is where questions and experimentation really matter. You reach out to your small but growing audience and you say, hey, why did you follow me? What was it about my content that you thought was interesting? What other content would you like to see me create? What kind of challenges are you having that you think my content might be able to solve for you? And then you let your audience and your followers and your network tell you what they want to see from you. So you don't have to figure it out. Your audience will do it for you.
One thing I really took away from one of your posts, and for the record, I think you're much better than an average writer, far above average writer, but it's been really fun to watch your journey too over the last several years. And I feel like I learned so much, not just from the content, but also how you post online. But there's one thing that stood out to me, which was making sure that people understood what you're all about when they land on your LinkedIn page. Mm-hmm. So rather than just kind of listing a bunch of things, starting with your title and your company, getting really clear about what you're all about. And it seems to me, thinking about this structure of a virtual event, that the same sort of thing kind of applies in an event situation when you're talking to somebody. Whether it's at a virtual event or it's your LinkedIn page or it's at a dinner party when those exist again. How do you recommend people introduce themselves to a new person that they're meeting for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest way to do it is an elevator pitch, right? It's like when you're a founder and you say, I'm the founder of X, people say, what's that? You've got a 30-second elevator pitch, right? And so in my opinion, everybody is a business. Like regardless of whether you're making money yet, everybody has the opportunity to create their own business online, whether that's a business that makes $100,000 a year, $1 million a year, or just an extra $100 a month to help pay their cell phone bill. Everybody has the opportunity to do those things. And so who are you? Who do you help? And what do you help them do? And so if you can just answer those very simple questions and maybe include how do you help them do it if you want a little bit more of a robust elevator pitch. So who are you? Who do you help? What do you help them do? And how do you help them do it? I think to me, just answering those very four simple questions gives you your own personal elevator pitch. And I'm sure there are much better ways to do it and more robust ways to do it, but I'm all about kind of just getting it down, getting it moving, and getting it started. And so I would start there.
You have any advice for people who are having their first interaction with someone online, whether that's a cold outreach or it's a warm outreach because someone commented on your post and you want to follow up in direct messages, or it's meeting someone in a virtual hangout room at a virtual event? What advice do you have for someone making that first interaction and how to conduct themselves?
Yeah, do online as you would do offline. It's so interesting how online gets twisted into this, I guess, like game where you have to have like these interesting skills to try and navigate it. I guess maybe offline you do as well, but to me, it's just replicating life. Like if I were to walk up and to introduce myself to somebody at a dinner party, I would usually have a reason. I might say, hey, I saw this thing about you. I thought that was really interesting. Wanted to learn more about that. If you're truly genuinely interested, then reach out and ask those types of questions, say those types of things. But you wouldn't at a dinner party walk up and introduce yourself and then go and do a sales pitch. If you do, you're probably not a popular guest at a dinner party, and you're probably not going to be very popular online. That's just like the way that I think about it is, would I do this offline? And if the answer is no, then you shouldn't do it online.
I love that. That's a good gut check. What were some of the bigger hurdles or mistakes that you made along the way to where you are now, just sort of over the last 2 years? What were some of your biggest stumbling blocks in building a personal brand?
Yeah. I used to get my feelings hurt when people would be kind of crappy online, right? It used to kind of hurt a little bit, and it's hard to ignore. You might get 100 comments on something and 99 are positive and one is just really mean. And early on, I didn't know how to handle that other than rebuttal. And I think I've learned over time that it's not worth it. It's not worth it. It's like, I just don't care. I want to be surrounded by people who are supportive. And by the way, challenging. Like I love challenging. I love when people say, hey, I disagree with that. And here's why I disagree. Like, great. Awesome. I think those are all very valid things to do, but just sheer anger, meanness. I just block people and I move on with my day. And oftentimes those people get nasty and they send you tweets and all. Oh, well, like I have better things to do than to argue with people on the internet. And so that was a tough learning. And I think is a tough learning for everybody who gets started is don't engage, just block and move on.
That should be a bumper sticker that everyone puts on their desk somewhere, just so that while they're responding to comments, they can remember to not engage and just block and move on. As you've kind of gone through these breakthrough moments, continued to get through those hurdles, as you've grown your personal brand, is there one sort of breakthrough moment or inflection point for you that stands out? Was there a moment when you said, okay, this is working, or hit that next gear of growth?
Yeah. I had originally intended when I went out on my own, I advise clients, early stage SMB SaaS founders. That's what I do as a service business when I'm doing hourly and project-based work. But I wanted to prove that I could make some income from having grown an audience. Like, yes, my founders and all that business comes a lot from LinkedIn and Twitter and things like that. But I wanted to prove that I could build products. And so I thought I was going to build sales-based products because I'm a sales leader by trade. That's what I, did for a long time. And I was having a conversation with Kevin Dorsey, who, we worked together at Patient Pop. And he said, it's so interesting, how you're using LinkedIn to grow. Why don't you teach people how to do that? And then I went back into my comments in my DM and my inbox on LinkedIn, and I started looking through all the different messages that people were sending me. And I started to realize that the messages they were sending me were like, hey man, how do you create content? How do you think about those different ideas? How do you schedule these things? What's your best tip for XYZ? And it was very rarely sales related. It was all related to like creating content on LinkedIn. And I was like, oh, this is my audience telling me something right to my face, and I'm just not recognizing it. And so I built a small, easily accessible course called the LinkedIn Playbook. I put it up online for $50, and I was really shocked to sell almost 1,500 copies of that in the last like maybe 8 months. And so to me, that was like, whoa, this is really powerful. And that was a big eye-opening moment for me, where I was like, this is actually really powerful. And I think 2 or 3 years from now, if I continue to be consistent and be patient, that hopefully will open up other, monetary opportunities for myself as well.
Absolutely. Well, and congrats on that breakthrough. I do remember that course coming out, and I think that's actually how we originally got connected. Is someone I know, I think it was Kyle Lacey, was commenting on your post, or you were commenting on his post, and I found your course through that. And just so much great content there for anyone that's watching.
Thanks.
I do highly recommend checking out that course. We'll, of course, link it up in the comments. But my question for you, Justin, is just before we close, I want to better understand, where are you going, and how can people here in the Powder Keg community? We have now over 10,000 members all over the country. And of course, not all of them will get to see this, but certainly hundreds, if not thousands, will get to see it. What are you looking to do next, and how can the Powder Keg community support you or plug into that opportunity that you're creating?
Yeah. It's interesting because I don't always know where I'm going, but I think that's what makes life really fun. But I'm really passionate about helping people create income online. Like when I launched the LinkedIn Playbook and was really surprised by that result, I thought about like how many other people are sitting on things that probably already exist in their Google Drive that are worth a lot of money to people. And that kind of impact, like look around, it's 2020, there's like 20 million people out of work. People are struggling. They have income on their hard drive somewhere. They have income in the cloud somewhere. They have income in their mind somewhere where they can, again, pay a cell phone bill, pay their car payment, pay their mortgage, maybe replace their salary. And I'm really passionate about helping people understand how to do that more simplistically, for less money, right? I think that people are really challenged economically right now, and I want to be able to build something that allows more people to earn income online. So I've been working on something for 6 months. It's not quite ready yet. And if people follow me on LinkedIn, I think when it launches, they'll be hopefully really pleased if earning some additional income online is important to them.
I love that. And I hope a lot of people take you up on that offer. If not for them, at least for a loved one. We all know someone who is an expert at something and has that entrepreneurial spirit, but just needs that spark to ignite it. And I think in a lot of ways, you're that fire starter for a lot of people, and have been certainly. But I know that your consulting business as well is very much pouring fuel on the fire and helping SaaS businesses grow in that ARR number. And so it's super relevant to what we're talking about here, scaling tech companies beyond traditional tech hubs like Silicon Valley and New York City. As a closing, I wanted to kind of pose a question for the comments just to encourage some discussion. Of course, hopefully people are sharing their LinkedIn URL and sharing how to plug in and connect with one another. But what are a couple questions, or what's one question that comes to mind that you'd be interested in hearing from our audience today? And that might lead to some good discussion.
Myself, I think what would be really interesting is to hear what keeps people from starting. Right? I have a take on what I think it is, which is fear, but I also wonder if people don't think that they have good ideas. And I want to break that stigma that like ideas are hard to come by. I want to teach people how to ideate. I want to teach people how to very quickly and easily stand something up, in less than 30 days. And so I'd be really interested in hearing, what keeps people from getting started that really want to get started. That would be interesting for me to know.
Oh, I love that too. I'm looking forward to diving into the comments there. So that's the question, everybody. Go ahead and start answering that question for yourself in the comments. What keeps you from getting started? Or feel free to answer it in the third person if that's a little too close to home. What do you think helps? What do you think keeps people from getting started? And I'll just, as we close here, again say thank you, Justin. And if people want to find you, follow you, find out more information about you, where can they go to get plugged into all things?
Yep.
Yep. Go ahead.
If you're an early stage SMB SaaS founder in the healthcare technology vertical and you're underneath 10 million in ARR, that's my sweet spot. They can go to scale.healthcare. And I help, again, early stage SMB SaaS founders in that vertical grow toward 50 million in recurring revenue. I've done it twice and hope to be helpful to a lot of companies. If people want to reach out to me via email, they can reach out to me at inquiry@theofficialjustin.com. And if they want to follow me on Twitter, they can follow me at Justin Sass, Justin SAAS.
Perfect. And we'll share that here in the comments as well, just so people can find it quickly and easily. We will have the replay available here in a little bit. So if you want to encourage a friend to check it out because you enjoyed the session, definitely feel free to let them know to pop in here and watch the replay. And Justin, thank you again. This was awesome, man.
Thanks so much for having me, Matt. I appreciate it, man.